Inhale and exhale. And inhale and just listen deeply. Nityanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gagana Sadrasham Tattvamasyari Lakshyam Ekam Nityam Vimilamachalam Sarvadi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sakurum Tam Namami Nityanandeshwara Paramashiva Samarambam Nityanandeshwari Parashakti Madhyamam Asmanachaya Vriyantam Vande Ayurveda Paramparam. All right. Cool. All right. So it's just us four. So we can go over a little bit more. I had two things going on. I was like, okay, so I can either do like a very, very preliminary, or just I didn't even plan this, but then I realized, okay, so why not? So a nice little intimate group. We can reveal some more powerful concepts that are very impactful. But we'll do like a fusion. So starting off, a little introduction on Ayurveda. Ayurveda is basically, Ayur means biology, life. Means life actually, but a little bit more of a detailed understanding than just life, because it's a science of life, okay, but really, really what that word Arya in Sanskrit it actually more means biology, and Veda means knowledge. So Ayurveda comes from the set of Vedas. You have the Rig Veda, the Rig Vedas, and the Chatur Veda, the four Vedas. So the Vedas are written 5,000 years old, but they're actually they were given an oral lineage. And there are actually some palm leaves that are up to 10,000 years old recorded. So geologists have confirmed that these palm leaves that hold a lot of the Ayurvedic knowledge is maximum 60,000 years old, minimum 10,000 years old. So to even cognize that depth of history has its own validity and its own authenticity established in that it's still preserved, that there's still that vibrational tuning, and these concepts are still expressing in the modern day world. So to that, the great sages and the great practitioners have really done a great service to preserve. Same thing with Chinese Taoist medicines, which are all branches of Ayurveda, cousins and sisters. But then so you see in Native American and Amazonia, if you're really in it, then okay, there's a bit of tradition and there's a bit of writing, but the preservation of scripture is just not there. So what validates something as per Vedic wisdom? What validates something is something called pramana. Pramana means, a way to understand it is scriptural reference. But more than just scriptural reference, it's not just like worship scriptures. It's being able to link something back to the Vedas. So of the 10,000 different traditions that are birthed from the Vedas, they all understand, or they accept the Vedas as the authority. And then from there, the application varies. And different schools of philosophy vary. Ayurveda has its roots in the 6 main philosophies: Sankya and yoga. There's 6 main philosophies they're called darshanas. Any philosophy on spirituality is encompassed by these 6 main philosophies. So Ayurveda has roots in all 6, which is profound. So Ayurveda goes to the extent of sistering with the brother called yoga. And yoga being the philosophy of union. So you have the Sankya. The Sankya is the main thought current, the main philosophy. And Sankya pretty much is cosmology. And it basically is the science of the macrocosm and the microcosm, understanding the reverse process of creation. So you have creation and consciousness, the Shiva and Shakti, and then how it breaks down into intelligence, buddhi, manas, mind, ahamkar, identity, and chitta, memory. And then from there it breaks down rajas, tamas, sattva, the natures, the qualities of existence. So basically everything in creation is either inert, it's basically static, basically active, and basically neutral and harmonious. So you have the 3. You could think of the electron, the neutron, and the proton. So everything in nature falls under these 3 qualities, and this is everything from the way we think, to to the elements, to the way the elements play, and our senses, and that's how the Sankhya breaks down. So you have Rajas, Tamas, Sattva, and how it's playing out with our organs of perception, our eyes, our ears, our nose, our mouth, our taste, our touch, our seeing, our feeling, all the organs of perception. And basically you have output and you have input, and then you have action. So these 5 organs, the eyes, ears, nose, mouth, and touch, skin, these 5 have an input and an output. So that's basically it. And within that framework, it's all playing in the field of the 5 elements. So here you have the macrocosm, the microcosm. Human beings are actually the embodiment of this. So we are essentially this expression of consciousness and creation in all these components. So there's 25 basic, they call them principal elements. So this whole Sankhya I just described is basically 25 principal elements. The play of these elements determine the 4 fruits of life. So the 4 fruits of life are Artha, Kama, Dharma, and Moksha. Okay, so Artha means celebration, enjoyment. You have, that's Kama. Artha is wealth, resources. Kama is enjoyment. Pleasure is not necessarily the right word, but it's basically enjoyment and basically celebration. That's a better way to put it. And then you have Dharma, which is, you can roughly translate as morality, but it's actually more than morality. It's being able to tune in with the flow of cosmic laws. So it's not moral in the sense that it's not limited to time, space, geography. So in a sense, it's you can almost look at it as morality, but it's actually cosmic morality. So Dharma is cosmic morality. It's higher than limited morality. And then you have moksha, which is liberation, and practically speaking, the expression of our soul coming in light of the divine. So this process, Ayurveda basically needs you to understand that these are the 4 fruits of life, but health is the prerequisite. So that's the best way to introduce Ayurveda, is Ayurveda understands Sankya, the yoga. Yoga means union of the individual soul or will with the cosmic soul or will, and the process of uniting. So with that framework, the Sankya comes in. You have your intelligence, which discerns, which makes decisions. You have the manas, which basically perceives. You have the ahamkara, which it identifies, and you have the chitta, the memory, and how that plays. So within the 5 elements, which is within the 3 qualities, with your sense organs of perception, input and output. So this whole play is supposed to manifest as your ability to generate wealth, resources. It's not money, currency per se. It's just your ability to generate resources. Enjoy those resources for Dharma. For Dharma, another good way to practically put it down is your life purpose. So you have your life purpose. You have the resources to live your life purpose. And you're enjoying and celebrating that process. Ultimately, when all 3 are in alignment, you're able to go beyond and you're able to express your fullness, your completion, which is moksha, which is liberation. So that's the more practical way to look at it. So for this whole thing, this whole dynamic, basically, yoga is a process of getting out of the delusion of being separate from source. The creation, we're in delusion because we're lost in the play of the gunas. Our senses are attached to the 5 elements. And we're basically unaware. Our intelligence, our memory, our decision making, our perception, our identity is in delusion of this play. And the whole process of yoga is reversing it back. So we can get back to the union of creation and consciousness. And beyond that, the ultimate. Different traditions call the ultimate different. Some Advaita traditions claim oneness. Dvaita traditions claim eternal separation. But ultimately, the climb back up the ladder, the reversal process of the Sankya process, basically going from being lost in creation to coming back to source, however you cognize that philosophy is irrelevant. The point is the reversal process must take place. We're basically put on earth for one reason and one reason only, and it's to come back to our source, come back to our nature. That's it. So yoga is the expression of that and the different philosophies of the Vedas. So health is the prerequisite. Health is the prerequisite. So that's where Ayurveda comes in. Ayurveda understands none of this is possible if you're not extremely healthy. You can forget about, if you're not healthy, you can't live your life purpose. You cannot generate the resources. It's different to have money, and it's different to be living your life purpose and generating the resources needed for your life purpose. And you can have those two, they all work together, so you really don't have those two. But when you are aligning your purpose, you need to be healthy. When you're gathering the resources to live your life purpose, you need to be healthy. And to enjoy it, you need to be healthy. Actually, you cannot enjoy life unless you are healthy. So anything that's robbing your health is not allowing you to enjoy life. So with all these, then expressing your completion, your fullness happens simultaneously with the other 3 and spontaneously. This expression needs health. Health is the fundamental pillar. Without health, none of that is possible. So this is Ayurveda introduction in a nutshell. You can go into any of these facets study it for many years, but this is the essence. With that, we've established the authenticity, we've established the origins, we've established the fundamental concepts on which it's built. Now we can start unpacking the Ayurveda and diving deeper and really understanding its holistic nature. So Ayurveda is the science and art of biology. Biology extends itself to everything. So in Ayurveda, even geography is biological. So even a river, that's why in Ayurveda, everything's poetic. In Vedic wisdom, anything that has a Sanskrit root is Vedic wisdom. Everything is poetic because you can't explain reality logically. You have to balance the logic with the creative. You can't explain it just creative. It'll be too abstract. It'll be too subjective. You can't explain it too logically. It'll be too objective. There needs to be a nice balance. So that's why I say science and art. Ayurveda encompasses both at the same time. So everything's poetic. So the rivers had poetic names. The rivers were given names, like how we name our children. They named the river. The river's alive. The river's a biology. It has moods. It has a memory. It makes decisions. It's alive. It's as alive as we are. Rivers, hills. So everything in Ayurveda plants was given a name. It was treated as like a son or a daughter. The reverence of nature was given complete respect, honor, and divinity. So with that framework, we dive into understanding Ayurveda now. It's the science and art of biology, not just our biology. Our biology is a hologram of our ecosystem. Ayurveda is all about balancing this hologram by balancing that hologram, balancing that hologram by balancing this hologram. If you balance the water element in your body, you won't even realize you are encouraging the balance of the water element in your ecosystem. One human being who can balance the fire element in their body is balancing the fire element in the ecosystem. So one being who has extraordinary health can make sure that the rain is not too strong and there's no drought. That the fire element is not, the radiation from the sun is not crisping, frying everything, nor is it, the radiation is not strong enough to help sprout. If the water element if the earth element is balanced in your body, you'll see the land becomes more fertile. The land becomes, the soil is rich in minerals. If there's less toxins in your body, there'll be less toxins in your ecosystem. It's the law of symbiosis. It's the law of harmony. So the more aligned and balanced and healthy you become, your environment reflects this 100%. So that's profound. It's a little illogical to look at it like this, but everything is connected. So that's one of the fundamental principles in Ayurveda is everything is in constant oneness. And if everything's intelligent, that's the first thing. Even this, what we call as inert matter, is living. It has a consciousness. It's primarily in the tamastic guna, so it doesn't appear to be alive, but it actually is. So everything's alive. Everything's animate, really. You can't even say there's any inanimate objects in creation. Everything's completely animate. So we really need to approach nature and reality as such. So now we need to dive into us, right? Because ultimately, you can try to fix things externally, but the law is actually when you align yourself, the outer gets aligned. If you try to fix the outer, but you neglect yourself, you're just creating a mess. And under cosmic oneness, we're so insignificant. So let's zoom out real quick and visualize Florida. Let's zoom out and visualize the Earth. Let's zoom out and visualize this galaxy. Let's zoom out and visualize this multiverse with all its galaxies. Let's zoom out and visualize the source where millions and infinite and trinity and trillions of multiverses are manifesting, getting generated, getting sustained, getting destroyed, getting rejuvenated, and expressing itself. The Big Bang, the black hole. So, from that perspective, we are completely insignificant unless we attune ourselves to that nature. Then we're very significant. So Ayurveda teaches you how to tune in to yourself. When you're tuned into yourself, you exist in that oneness, that completion, that wholeness with reality, then it makes sense. Okay, now yeah, the river does speak. Because I can speak to the blood flow in my body. I can understand, I have the sensitivity to understand the blood flow in my body. I can understand the agitation or the calmness in the river. So things start to open up. So that's a good second layer of kind of an understanding to dive a little deeper, is the oneness and the sensitivity. And then now it starts to make sense why this herb has this effect on our body, this food has this effect on our body, this toxin has this effect in our body. Now we can understand biology. I'm just trying to give you guys a bigger perspective on biology. Biology encompasses your mood, encompasses your decision making, encompasses your thought currents, and encompasses your chemistry. And realize that this same play, there's no difference from what's happening in your body to happening anywhere in creation and the cosmos. The same, the metabolism, catabolism, and anabolism of the cell, of the tissue, of the organ, of the gland, the same thing that's happening there is happening on a cosmic scale. The same creative energy, anabolism. Sustaining energy, you have metabolism, and then catabolism, you have the destructive energy, which is not destructive in the sense that it's devoid of existence. It's actually paving way for the new. It's just rejuvenation. So the cell's ability to sustain itself, anabolism, or generate itself, anabolism, sustain itself, metabolism, and break itself down, destroy itself for rejuvenation, catabolism, all the three cellular functions are literally, there's no difference between that and anything in creation. You have generator, operator, destroyer. So what is that? God. Generator, operator, destroyer. And in Vedic tradition, you have Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. So this whole micro-macro play is happening. You need to understand this, because then when we start practically coming down to herbs and diet and lifestyle, then it all starts to come together. Because you need the bigger picture. See, if you don't have the bigger picture and you're just trying to jump to conclusion, then you actually won't have the intelligence to execute the conclusion when your patterns start to dictate your decision making. You need the bigger perspective to be able to say, wait a minute, there's a blind spot. By me acting out of impulse and compulsiveness towards my body, there is a blind spot happening on a bigger scale. If I see the bigger scale, I see the blind spot, I see how that blind spot becomes a side effect and after effect in my short-term and long-term existence. So having the intelligence to look at the bigger picture and the smaller picture within every decision making is very vital. So with that being said, let's start to break this whole thing down. All right, so there's some bullet points. Okay. Let's start with the 3 doshas. Doshas. Okay. Any questions so far? If you generate a question, it's good. If not, it's okay. I guess that means I described well.
I didn't start a fight somewhere else in the world by having my cheeseburger, did I?
I think we'll see, right? We'll see.
We'll open our third eye and see.
We'll see. It's funny. Okay. All right, so, but that's profound, right? Like, what an intelligence to think, oh, my every action, my physiology is directly related to my environment. Oh, well, then now let's think about the world we live in, right? So the world needs this. The world needs to come back to the self and understand health in alignment to the self. When health becomes a priority and a attunement to the self devoid of our ups and downs and our mood swings and our hormonal and chemicals and our moods and our irritations and our agitations and our all that. When the self is just, you can express it as it is, and health is the tuning point, the path, you're doing the greatest service for humanity without even feeling like you're doing a service. You're just, the best service you can do is to give yourself the most radiant health. Giving yourself the most radiant health is the best service you can do for your family, your friends, and the world at large. So that's profound. That's profound. And the quantum effect, it's hard to rationalize, but literally one person healing themselves can offset the collective negativity on like a quantum scale. I mean, think about it this way. One world leader, due to their influence, one thought current, one decision can impact so many people in a dramatic way. So why can't our thought currents and decisions impact people in a dramatic way in terms of collective positivity? That's a profound way to look. Okay, so yeah, it doesn't make sense that, okay, so if I heal my liver, I'm indirectly helping the waters of the world get purified. That's one, you can look at it that way. But then we can rationally see, like, okay, one world, Einstein, one idea, one visualization of radiation, of atomic energy, and look at the world we live in today, where you have like a Fukushima blowout. That's just due to one man's visualization. So that we need to look on that scale. We are that powerful, we are that profound, and we can, by healing ourselves, by awakening health consciousness in us and attuning our body, our mind, and our being to our nature, our consciousness, we are creating the ecosystem, the environment, for the highest and best possibility. Okay, so I want to talk about the doshas. So now that we understand the micro and the macrocosm at play, let's understand our body is made up of 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space. In Sanskrit, space is akasha, air is vayu, fire is agni, water is jala, and earth is prakriti. So even planet Earth has a name, as a Sanskrit, is Bhudevi, the goddess. Devi is the goddess, divine feminine creative energy. And Bhu is earth. Bhu mandala means the energy field, the energy circuit of planet Earth. So literally the earth is literally has a nervous system, has a circuitry, just like us. So Bhu mandala, right? So these 5 elements live in us. They are literally every cell in creation. Every cell, every atom of creation has these 5 elements in some ratio. So the different permutation combination ratios is what science has distilled as the periodic table of elements. And there's many unknown elements that are still yet to be discovered, right? So those are called Ormus elements. So we are the embodiment of it's called the Pancha Mahabhutas, the great 5 elements. They exist within us, and they're the base material of the cosmos. So these 5 elements have a biological play in us, so bioelements. You have the earth and water element, right? So these 2 elements here, they're joined because they're next to each other. So think of degrees of density or frequency, or the only way to visualize this is kind of like those little, you have a box and a smaller box inside and a smaller box inside and a smaller box inside. And actually the earth element may be the most gross element, but it's actually the most energetically weakest. The water element may be more subtle to the eye, but it's energetically more powerful as a frequency. The fire element, even more subtle to the naked eye, but energetically, even it encompasses the previous two. The earth element is basically at a unit dimensional frequency the most powerless. The water element has its nature and the earth nature within it also. So basically it eats it, it consumes it. It has both. The fire has all three. And that's why if you look in chemistry, earth can dissolve, water can dissolve earth. A river can mold a mountain over thousands of years. It can create, it's the only thing powerful enough to push through a mountain. Same way, heat can break down the water, right? And air can break down the heat. So basically, these 5 elements are more powerful than the previous one energetically. So when you come to space element, that's it. That's like, space element is the most powerful element. Space element reflects consciousness. So consciousness is actually the most powerful, but it's outside of the play of creation. It's so subtle, it's so purified, that by the time anything is existing in pure consciousness, it's no longer existing in the play of creation. But space is the most subtle, yet the most powerful element, which can reflect consciousness. It's the basic bridge. So these 5 elements exist within us. Earth and water element they're together. So they come, and in us they create something called the kapha dosha. So the word dosha has 2 meanings. It means bioelemental constitution, and it also means imbalance. So usually you'll see in Ayurveda a lot of Sanskrit words, they have multiple meanings. That's just because their ability to contextualize content is multidimensional. So it's where English is binary, it's dual. So that's the unique thing about Sanskrit. So when you get a Sanskrit word, a lot of times a Sanskrit word can fit itself in many different contexts. Whereas in English, it's just yes or no, kind of binary, gross. But anyways, so dosha means imbalance of your bioelements, but it also means the bioelement itself. So your dosha, you can use it in both ways. Your dosha is your constitution. So you have the earth and water dosha. And you know what's beautiful about Ayurveda is even a child can understand it. Because as we break it down, it's just heat and cold, and these different elements have different qualities. We can tangibly play with it. Earth has a quality of stability. Water has a quality of fluidity. This is tangible. So the tangible nature of Ayurveda makes it fun. You can experiment with it. You can give it can be a structure for your intuition to flow. And that's very important when you're practicing. When you're practicing the lifestyle, when you're putting it into application, to be able to say, oh, well, I'm feeling, I need to feel more fluid. Maybe my water element's imbalanced. Things like that. All right, so earth and water element create the kapha dosha. Kapha is the mix of the two. So think of like mud, right? Mud, it's earth and it's water, it's gunky, it's very heavy, moist. So understand that. Then I'll get into the imbalances. Then we have in the middle, the pitta. The pitta is the fire element with a little bit of water element. So like 90%, 10% type of thing. So it's mainly fire. So pitta element is this fire element at play in our body. And then you have the vata. Vata is the combination of air and space. All right, so now let's understand this a little deeper. Vata is the ability for your body to be in movement. So you have the channels of your body have space. And by the nature of your body creating channels of space, the opportunity for air is movement. Think of air. When you don't see air, but you feel it, it's the movement. So you have channels of space and movement, air and space element. So you have these channels. Our nervous system is the main conduit of the Vata element. So think of movement, right? So when you think of Vata, think of movement. Pitta. Pitta is the metabolism, the force that breaks down, right? It sustains our tissue. Pitta is when balanced. Pitta is basically the expression of radiance. Fire is radiant. Fire sheds a light. So with fire you can see. Without fire, nothing exists. The minute there's fire, the minute there's light, sun, you have existence. You can perceive. So perception, radiance, perception. Very important. Then you have kapha. Kapha gives foundational stability, groundedness, right? It's got a lot of those qualities at play. So I'm going to go a little deeper. You have kapha is responsible for your hormones. Pitta is responsible for your chemicals that your body creates. And Vata is the movement. So now let's start talking about imbalances and balances. We all experience mood swings throughout the course of our day. Throughout the course of our months, we experience kind of like a high time and a low tide. Throughout the course of a year, there's a few months where everything's great and we're flying and everything. And there's a few months where bad luck and things are, low mood and things like that in the course of our lifetime. This Vata, Pitta, Kapha extends into our lifetimes. The Kapha time of our life is when we're babies. Babies, they're new. So Kapha is a lot of the anabolic energy, that creation energy that I was talking about. Anabolism. The body, the embryo is birthed and it's new, it's fresh. And notice babies, they're very pudgy. They create a lot of mucus. That's a quality of kapha, is mucus. And they're just new and they're absorbing and they're in the kapha stage of their life. When they get into like their 20s, teens, 20s, they start entering the pitta stage of their life. And this is where like their maintenance, right? You're maintaining your life. This is where the most activeness is, right? You're the peak of your expression. And the Vata stage of your life, you become more etheric. You're the bones are getting more brittle. The nervous system is not as strong. And in Ayurveda, ideally, you want to have a graceful entry, a graceful maintenance, and a graceful exit. So this is the stages of our biology in the course of our lifespan. So older people, they tend to degenerate. Tissues start to break down. They're in that catabolic stage of their cellular existence. So this is another way to look at it. You have the kapha time of the day when the sun comes out, right? That's the day is just starting. You have the pitta time of the day when the sun is intense. It's at its highest frequency. It's beaming. And then you have that vata time of the day when the sun's going down and everything's kind of cool, right? And you can think of these in 6-hour segments, right? And then you come into, roughly, so just basically into one third. And then you come into the nighttime. You have the kapha time of the night. The night is new. You're getting tired. You're starting to get sleepy. If we were naturally aligned to our biorhythms, which we'll talk about at the end. So six, 7, 8 o'clock, it's time you just want to settle down. And 10 o'clock at night comes the pitta time of the night, right? And the funny thing is about the pitta time of the night is you can either get the deepest rest or you can get a jolt of energy. If you're sleeping and your liver is free, your liver is a pitta organ to clean up your body, and you get a nice deep sleep. So you get to bed by 10, from 10 to 2 in the morning, that's when you get your most regenerative rest. That's the pitta time of the night, because that's the maintenance, right? But, some people take advantage of the pitta energy, and they get that, it's like you're tired, and then 10 o'clock comes, and all of a sudden, boom, you got like a spark, and you can go till 1 or 2 in the morning. And then you have the vata time of the night. And this is the most etheric part of the night. And this is why the yogis meditate at this time of the night. Because if they're attuned to their biorhythms, the pitta time of the night rejuvenated them thoroughly. And that time of the night, vata is air and space. So you have a lot of that prana. We'll talk about prana. But prana is a life force. Life force is reflected by air and space. That's why pranayama, you're breathing the air, and you're connecting to space element. Space element is the vacuum in which prana, the life animating force, the biointelligence, is at its highest capacity. So vata time of the night is a time to meditate if you're a yogi, right? So that's when you can absorb the most prana. And then, again, vata time of the night is over, and now you come into the kapha time of the morning. Traditionally, in the kapha time of the morning, people are very active, they're working the fields, because it's kapha, it's physical, it's building, your body is ready to be activated. And pitta time of the day, that's when you want to eat, right? If we're tuned to our biorhythms, which is a different subject. But if we were tuned to our biorhythms and we meditated early and we were physical during the kapha time of the day, that's why farmers would be active and they would start settling down at around 10 o'clock because it's too hot. It's from 10, you start preparing your food, you consume, and then you can digest, and then there's a little rest that goes along with that because it's just too hot to be active. So your metabolism's already powerful at that time. Metabolism, Agni, is metabolism, and the sun are directly linked, Pitta. So that's Pitta time. And then the Vata time of the evening, that's when stress is highest. And that's when people crash, their adrenals are down. Adrenal is a Vata organ. And they tend to get into that low energy. Or if they're forced to be in high energy, they tend to be agitated. And that's because the nervous system wants to rest. If we were natural, we would rest at that time. We would settle down. But we're not. We're in cars and we're in traffic and things like that. And it's very stressful. So the time when your nervous system's actually weakest is when you want to rest it. The time when you want to engage the nervous system is usually when we're resting. So there's some biological offsets, and we wonder why we're imbalanced, but this sheds some light on that. So the Vata time of the night, people tend to go for that second round of coffee. People tend to go for, things to kind of wake them up and stuff. Or if they're forced to be in activity, there tends to be an uneasiness. And then Kapha time of the night starts, and this is when we should be winding down, getting ready for sleep, maybe even getting into sleep. If we lived in natural environments where there was no artificial light, once that sun goes down, it's time to sleep. So it's not wise to eat in any phase of the night. The kapha, the pitta, and the vata, because during the day the jatara agni is high, at night the kama agni. Kama is like the agni of relaxing, of coolness, of the feminine energy, of rejuvenation, where the jatara agni is, you're active, it's more masculine. So jatara agni, metabolism is higher during the day, so food consumption, digestion is more appropriate. At night, you need that same metabolism to be powerful, to rejuvenate your cells. So if you eat a meal at night in the kapha time of the night, that creation time of the night, that early part of the night, and you're digesting during the pitta time of the night, your liver can't clean up your body. Instead, it's working on that food. You don't get a good night's sleep, restless sleep. It starts to disturb your vata over time. Then you oversleep, and you're not able to get up early and do your meditation. And then you sleep into the kapha time of the day. And the problem with waking up at the kapha time of the day is now you're congested. Now you wake up and your head is heavy and you're sluggish, and there's the brain also has a kapha, and the kapha of the brain is basically gunked up. So the whole lifestyle yoga and Ayurveda is to just clean up these biorhythms so that our life naturally comes into balance and harmony. Back to the doshas. So now you have the kapha is your hormones. Pitta, I'm going to start making things a little practical. Pitta is your chemicals. And vata is what? It's the nervous system. It's the electricity. It's what puts your hormones and chemicals in ups and downs. So we go through what's called hormonal and chemical highs and lows. So Ayurveda is all about samadosha, meaning attaining the space where your highs and lows do not dictate your buddhi, your decision making. And your buddhi is your intelligence, your decision making is strong enough to also learn to manage and keep, because it is unreasonable to think that you can keep your doshas balanced all the time. It's, I don't want to say impossible, but that's not nature's way. Nature is in flux, so it's okay to be imbalanced. It's part of life. It's learning to manage. It's learning to use your buddhi, your intelligence, your decision making, learning to use your chitta, your memory, learning to use your manas, your perception, and learning to use your ahamkara, your identity, to manage your doshas. So they say in a nutshell, Ayurveda is just pitta management. Management of fire. Because fire is what? Fire is that sustenance. Sustenance is where the magic happens. That's where we can play. And sustaining management of the fire element is all that is basically the essence of Ayurveda. And generation of ojas. Ojas is immunity. So, and something a little bit more. But I'll get to that. So you have this play. Our hormones and chemicals are constantly going up and down. And this is creating our perception. And this is pushing strings in our passions and in our patience. We're basically controlled, our will, our decision making in an imbalanced state of extreme imbalance is controlled by our hormonal and chemical ups and downs. I can say also too, like a mood swings. We go through mood swings. And the only way to think about this is a lot of people, until their intelligence learns to balance your hormones and chemicals. See, in Vedic tradition, until you're given a technique to balance your hormones and chemicals, you cannot be punished by law. So think about that. Until you're given the methodology to keep your hormones and chemicals balanced, you're not even given existential responsibility. You're literally like an animal, right? An animal, if they do something, like or a baby, if a baby steals from a store, you can't punish it. So in ancient Vedic tradition, until you're initiated, meaning until you're given a technique to balance your hormones and chemicals, you're not even punished if you do something immoral, not a dharmic.
What age does that go to?
Usually between 7 and 21 you're trained. So from 7 to 21, a natural lifestyle is from 0 to 7 you're kept in a loving ecosystem. From 7 to 14 you're trained in arts and different meditations to balance your hormones. From 14 to 21 you're allowed to live your expression. So like your natural innate lust or your natural innate passions and things like that. And you're learning to face your fears. So, and then your social status is determined by the quality of your nature. So this was ancient Vedic society. So until we're taught to balance our hormones and chemicals, we don't even have an existential awareness. Like, we don't even exist, so to speak. We're just literally animals that are pre-programmed as per nature, as per Prakriti. So a human being that has not been trained to balance their hormones and chemicals, you can't even get mad at them. They are not existentially aware of themselves, basically. So this is the gift of Ayurveda. The gift of Ayurveda is having the capacity, the tools, the technology, and beyond. See, that not all the time you're going to be able to implement a tool or a technique or a lifestyle methodology, but just the sheer intelligence to manage your system, to handle yourself. So for example, you're angry, that's a hormonal imbalance. You're agitated, that's a hormonal imbalance, a hormonal and chemical imbalance. You're frustrated, that's a hormonal and chemical imbalance. You're sleepy, that's a hormonal and chemical imbalance. You're hungry, that's a hormonal and chemical imbalance. You're in lust, that's a hormonal and chemical imbalance. You're under intense fear, that's a hormonal and chemical imbalance. So our perception, our manas, is dictated by the play of the gunas, the hormonal and chemical imbalance within our senses. Input and output. We're receiving information through our mind, our manas. The information is being processed by our chitta, our memory. The file is going to our buddhi, the decision maker, and ultimately our identity executes. So all imbalances is nothing but a virus, they're called samskaras, programming, in between the buddhi and the ahamkar. So basically we all know, we have an innate intelligence to know the right decision at the right time. But these patterns that link to our hormonal and chemical ups and downs are programmed. So from our intelligence knows. So, but when our intelligence knows ultimately the best thing, the best decision at the best time. But our ahamkar, our identity, is what executes. If there's too many samskaras, means programming, in between, what happens is the samskaras, means our hormonal and chemical programmings, make the decision, not our better intention, not our will. So the whole game in Ayurveda is to flip that. Clear the samskaras through aligning to a satvic existence, which I will get into. Once you clear the samskaras, your decision making gets a clear signal to the identity, and the identity can execute. So I'll give you an example. You know you shouldn't eat that. It's like nighttime, right? There's like cookies and ice cream or something. I don't know, just an example. You know very well you shouldn't eat that. Maybe you got a performance in the morning, but something in there is like telling you, no, it's all right. They're like, basically like, oh, it convinces you to eat it. And then you eat it. And then you feel bad, and then you get guilty. Well, that is the patterns. But that initial, like, that knowing that I shouldn't eat it, that's your buddhi, that's your intelligence. But the impulse, the compulsion to make you eat that is the programming, right? So Ayurveda is all about infusing the prana, getting satvic. The prana rubs out those patterns. So now you get to a place where you see that food, and the compulsion, the urge is just not there because the memory has been purified. The perception is straight. The intelligence can be executed. And that's the whole game, and I'll go into that. So basically your doshas go out of balance, out of whack. You just don't want it to go so out of balance where you are in no control of yourself, and the problem is what I call the vicious cycle. The vicious cycle is fundamentally I know this is wrong. See, the main source of disease in Ayurveda is abuse of the senses. You know it's wrong and you do it anyways. That is, there's few main sources of diseases as per Ayurveda. One is not being in contact with the self, with your soul and in the oneness. That's number one. That's like at the core. The root of all diseases is lack of alignment with the true self. Then the second is abuse of the senses. You know, chasing that temporary pleasure causes long-term pain, but you do it anyways. So discipline, as per Ayurveda, is all about understanding, I'm going to choose long-term pleasure, and avoid the short-term pain of not having that gratification. Right? So in delayed gratification, it's a principle. So basically, pleasure is presented. Sometimes pleasure and discipline, pleasure and authenticity, pleasure and right come together. Great, enjoy. It's perfect. That's actually the goal. See, when everything's undisciplined and everything is as per your right knowing, eventually the very flow of your existence is pleasurable. Simple things give you joy. And you're not bound by the duality of chasing pleasure. Then by the nature of duality, the pleasure leaves. Now you're caught in pain. And then you want to get out of pain, so you chase pleasure again. And then that's the vicious cycle. And ultimately, what are you doing? You are abusing the sense organs and the input and output instruments of the senses. So chasing short-term pleasure and having the blind spot of the long-term pain, you want to reverse. That's the vicious cycle. And that's the state that most people live in when you don't know how to balance your hormones and chemicals. When you can't balance your doshas and you don't have will over your doshas, then what ends up happening is you live in this rut. Basically, you're chasing pleasure, instant gratification, which always leads to long-term pain. And with the amount of choices and options that are in the modern day world, you don't even live that long. So if you live in that rut, you're done for pretty quickly. Whereas discipline, longevity, the art and science of longevity as per Ayurveda, is the science of never giving into the short-term pleasure, always doing what you know innately is right, what you know innately is authentic. By doing that, you avoid the pain, and if you do experience some pain, you can manage it. You have the energy to manage it. And then your existence itself becomes pleasurable. But it's a different type of pleasure. It's not a short-term pleasure. It's the pleasure of being in oneness with your soul. So that's saying discipline is the true source of joy. Delayed gratification is the source of longevity. So it's true. So abusing the senses. It's the vicious cycle. So our hormones and chemicals are imbalanced. We're caught abusing the senses. We're caught just making a mockery of our senses. What happens? Our senses get dull. Our internal organs get diseased. Our mind gets depressed. And human beings are living in a state where diseased body, depressed mind, weak will. We wonder why we're suffering, right? We wonder why. So the whole Ayurveda is just reversing, going from vicious cycle to virtuous cycle. So virtuous cycle is you never give in to instant gratification. You always do what you know innately is right. You always do what you know innately as authentic. And through that process, you don't abuse your senses. By not abusing your senses stay fresh, alive, excited. Excited by what? Just by life in general. All right. So before moving on, let's just do like a little pranayam to center ourselves. All right. So this is, we're just basically going to do a 4-part breath. We're going to inhale, hold our breath as long as possible, Exhale, hold our lungs empty as long as possible. Our eyes are closed, looking in between the eyebrows, and we're in Samana Mudra, which is right thumb over left, placed right at the sternum. Back is straight. Again, inhale, slow, long, and deep. Hold the breath as long as you comfortably can. You can't hold anymore. Exhale, slow, long, and deep. And again, hold your lungs empty as long as possible. And this is actually directly connected to our process. We're balancing the prana. By doing this, by balancing the prana, your hormonal and chemical ups and downs, your doshas, start to come back into harmony. We learn to have will over our senses, over our patterns. We're balancing the vata, the erratic nature of the nervous system, by calming the breath. The vata gets centralized through the pranic force. We become deeply centered. Hold the lungs empty. Pranayama, breathing, is the most direct and powerful method to balance our doshas, to bring our hormonal chemical ups and downs into stability, alignment, so that we can make decisions not influenced by our patterns. And relax the breath you're on. Very good. As much as you comfortably can. Keep the back straight so that we can listen with full alertness. Okay, so back to the... And then that preludes me into how to balance the doshas. So just a little bit more contextual understanding on imbalanced doshas. When pitta is in balance, well, we'll start with kapha. When kapha is in balance, we tend to generate a lot of mucus. Our hormones are in balance, we generate a lot of mucus, and we tend to get into psychologically what in modern terms would be called depression, low mood. We just feel low, we feel down. So everyone has all the doshas, but primarily one or two predominates your constitution. So you might be more fire element, you might be more air element, you might be more earth element, you might be more kapha. So usually it looks like this: you're a pitta kapha, or you're a kapha vata, or you're a pitta vata. So it's usually one, and then there's a predominance of that. And then you have a secondary, and then the third. So it doesn't mean that if someone says, oh, I'm a pitta, that doesn't mean they don't have the other two. It just means that they're predominantly pitta.
Does that correlate at all to like your astrological sign when you were born? Like if you're a water sign or a fire sign or no?
Well, I'm a little bit more versed in astrology, and it does. but it could be more on your personality, that body, than your physical body. But it could also translate into the physical body.
I know for a fact. So astrology, this is what I can tell you. Astrology impacts your organs because of the magnetic push and pull. So yes, they do correlate, for sure. Actually, it's very strongly linked. In astrology, Ayurvedic techniques are given to help. So if someone doesn't look like they're gonna have a good month on a certain planet, the astrologers knew that planet's gonna have a magnetic influence on some organ. So they're given like a Vata, Pitta, Kapha treatment, herbs or process or protocol to help maintain during that astrological imbalance, and actually try to use that astrology to your benefit. So that I can tell. So it is correlated, absolutely. When kapha is in balance, you're full of mucus, and you tend to be very foggy and very low, depressed, low mood. So usually you tend to see, and if you have a bigger body frame, you tend to be more on the kapha side. And it's not a bad thing. When kapha is balanced, instead of depression, you tend to be very caring, compassionate, very loving. You tend to have that quality of motherliness. There's that sense to you. Pitta people are very patient, right? So the benefit of kapha when it's balanced is you have patience. The side effect when it's imbalanced is you have laziness. So pitta, you're going to be more, when it's imbalanced, you're going to be more irritable, more angry, things like that. It's a fire element, a lot of heat. You're prone to, acidity and things of that nature. And when pitta is balanced, you're very highly intelligent, very radiant, very passionate. So the side effect of pitta is irritable. The benefit is passionate and intelligent, very radiant. The side effect is impatient, very irritable, very angry. So that's pitta out of balance. And this was a profound revelation for me, because when I first learned this, I realized you can't blame someone's emotional state. You need to look at their chemistry. You need to look at their elemental. Your liver is toxic. Of course you're going to shout, be angry. Let's work on clearing the liver. There's actually, in Ayurveda, they work on physiology to clear psychology. They actually don't work the other way around. They understand, if you try to work on psychology, you can't use the mind to fix the mind. So you work on the body, you work on physiology. Physiology adjusts psychology. All right, and then you have, and kapha people tend to have sluggish digestion. So they tend to put weight on easier. Pitta people tend to have hyperactive digestion. So they tend to be, very like a strong metabolism. That doesn't necessarily come to their benefit. It leads to acidity problems, and it leads to just basically breakouts, skin, a lot of skin things of that nature. And then vata people tend to go into anxiety, nervousness. So when they're imbalanced, when vata people are balanced, they have the power of prayerfulness, of projection, of intention, intuition. They're very aware of their surroundings, right? Very etheric, strong voice, things of that nature. So this is the Vata, Pitta, Kapha in a nutshell. Any questions on Vata, Pitta, Kapha?
Aren't there some more positive qualities of Vata? Like, I think one of them was like creativity, wasn't it?
Intuition, creativity. Yeah.
Just like being more etheric. Benefits of being more etheric.
Etheric.
I'm still trying to memorize these. I wonder if there's like a little...
I'm filming this,
Okay.
and it'll be on YouTube. Yeah. Yeah. And then and you can I like Banyan Botanicals. They have good articles. So you go on banyanbotanical.com. And a lot of the things we're discussing, they have good articles on. Okay. So we have about 38 minutes left. Okay. So Ama, let's talk about Ama. When our doshas are out of balance, we create something called Ama. In Ayurveda, the source of health and the source of disease is our digestion. So our digestion determines whether we're going to be extremely healthy and our doshas are going to be balanced, or we're going to be extremely unhealthy. And the body in Ayurveda is looked at systematically. So think of a tree. You have the roots, you have the trunk, you have the branches, you have the leaves. So a disease starts in the digestive tract, spreads into the organs and tissues, and gets systematically, it goes from like mild to chronic to severe. The imbalance tends to get deeper, and usually where you're genetically weak too. And Ayurveda actually has the whole science of Ayurveda is reversing your genetics. Right? So you're not bound by a genetic disease, but your genetics is your fundamental blueprint. So you work with your genetics, but you're not limited by your genetics. So it doesn't have an extreme viewpoint on either side. It's very clear. Your genetics are meant to be transcended, genetic diseases, but you are not bound to suffer that disease. You have free will to heal and rebalance. So the deeper the disease starts in digestion, gets systematically spread into the system, and the imbalance just gets more chronic and worse and more systematically deeper. So, in Ayurveda, when you go for balancing, they tend, if you can heal the digestive system, it's easy to draw out those imbalances. And if something's really deep, then you have to undergo a severe or more intense process of detoxification. So understand these two words, detoxification, rejuvenation. So all disease starts in our digestive tract. Basically what happens in Ayurveda, as per Ayurveda, is whatever you consume, whatever you eat, tends to leave residue. So the more a food is, and I will go over this, you have satvic food, rajasic food, and tamastic food. This also encompasses our thought currents. We have tamastic thought currents, rajasic thought currents, and satvic thought currents. We eat our thoughts as much as we eat our physical food. So understand that the two work together, actually. So Ama is psychological, emotional, and physiological. Ama is all three. So whatever we consume through our senses, through our thoughts, and through our physical food and water quality, or liquid quality, that directly determines how well you're going to digest. So what you're eating is secondary. How well you can break it down is primary. So a lot of people are freaking out and trying to run through different diets. Well, first, let's look at the mechanism. Let's work on the digestion. Let's balance Agni. Balancing Agni allows you to break down your food properly. Having high food quality is important. Basically, I said when we were talking about Sankya, there's three bioelements. There's three bioqualities. Bioqualities. Rajas, tamas, sattva. Tamas is inertia. Rajas is activity. Sattva is harmony. So, clarity. So, our foods need to become sattvic. The more sattvic your foods are, the more easily digestible they are, and the more energetic, the more prana, life force. These are some key words. Life force is available in the food. So this is not set. So if you can't take application out of context, meaning if someone says eat this food, that could have been sattvic 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. It may not be sattvic today. So you need to constantly update what is sattvic, what is rajasic, what is tamastic. Also, overeating. You can have the most organic foods. If you eat at the wrong times, when your agni is weak, you eat too much of it, that same sattvic food has a tamastic effect on the system. So the food should be sattvic, and the digestion process should be sattvic. This is the key to health. Detoxification is the dimension of Ayurveda, removing the agni and removing the ama and empowering the agni. So think of your digestion as a fire. You have a fire. If you throw mud on it, the fire is going to diminish. Or if you throw gasoline on it, it's going to flare up. Well, ama acts like gasoline, or it acts like mud, or sometimes both. Think of mixing mud with gasoline and throwing that in a fire. It would do all sorts of weird things. The fire would get erratic. So that's what happens to our metabolism. That's what happens to our cells. We basically create an erratic condition metabolically, and that imbalances the system dramatically. Now the foods we eat, as per Ayurveda, there's 7 tissue layers. There's the lymphatic, so it goes through digestion. Liver has a digestive agni, which breaks down the 5 elements. Through the liver, we have the lymphatic system, the blood, the muscle, the bone, the nerve, which includes our brain, our neurons in our brain fluid. And we have reproductive fluid, and ultimately we have the ojas, the immunity. So the goal of Ayurveda is to balance agni. So remove the ama, remove the toxicity, which happens together. Detoxify the system, rejuvenate the system, so everything we consume gets digested through all these 7 tissue layers and becomes ojas, becomes this primordial immune power. Ojas also is your aura. So when you have a strong ojas, you also have a strong electromagnetic field. So agni gets smothered, gets imbalanced by the wrong food. But what type of foods? Tamastic foods and rajasic foods. They tend to imbalance the system. Tamastic foods generally are classified as meats, alcohols, and processed refined food. All that stuff is primarily tamastic. Rajasic food are your stimulants, right? Your chilies and your garlics and onions and your coffees and your cacao and things like that, of that nature. So the most dangerous, the most ama forming is obviously your tamastic foods. We live in a rajasic world. A little bit of rajasic food you can moderate it. It's okay in moderation, but you can't have moderation with tamastic food. If you have moderation with tamastic food, you're guaranteeing yourself an imbalance. And you just want to be in the satvic rajas range. So actually foods get broken down. You have sattvically rajasic food, rajasically satvic food, rajasically rajasic, rajasically tamastic, and tamastically rajasic. You want to stay away from anything tamastic. If it's like coffee's rajasically rajasic. Certain spices are sattvically rajasic or rajasically sattvic. Certain spices or herbs are tamastically rajasic or rajasically tamastic. And certain foods are completely sattvic. Certain foods are sattvically rajasic. So you just have to know your playing field. Generally, processed refined food is rajasically tamastic. Meats is tamastic. Alcohol is tamastic. Illegal drugs either have a stimulating effect, a rajasic effect, or a tamastic effect. Never is something that poisons your system fundamentally sattvic. So basically this is the indicator. When you consume something, you're either going to express life, and it's not stimulation. So you need to have a scale. The short-term and long-term effect of what I'm consuming. If I'm consuming something that has a short-term energizing effect, but long-term it has a dulling effect, it's a stimulant. And if you're consuming something that has an immediate dulling effect, then that's tamastic. So anything which fundamentally makes your cells, your Your body withdraw from reality. Sleepy, tired, lazy. This is tamastic, right? Anything which hyper excites the system and then doles it out, depletes the adrenal glands, that's ragistic. And anything which makes you feel fresh, alive, clear, that is satvic. So food needs to primarily be satvic if you want to be healthy. Detoxification is the process of removing the ama. So if you're loaded with ama from years of eating tamasic food, your system's weakened by the ragistic food, you don't like or crave, your biology doesn't crave sattvic food, you need to cleanse the system. So detoxification leads to rejuvenation. Basically, detoxification is a systematic process. It's a lifestyle process. It's not something you do in 2 or 3 days, where you remove the ama, and the ama that is systematically caught in deeper tissue layers, you allow your metabolism to burn it out intelligently. And once this ama is removed, your metabolism works properly, your agni works properly. Now your body actually craves sattvic food. See, the reason why the body doesn't crave sattvic food is because of the ama. Ama includes pathogens, bacteria, yeast, mold, fungus, parasites, heavy metals, chemicals, pollutants, and undigested food. So if you're eating tamasic food, the nature of tamasic food is it's sluggish. It doesn't eliminate from the body quickly. It lingers. A lot of it gets stuck in the body. So too much, and it attracts all these kind of things, the parasites, the pathogens, the yeast, the mold, the fungus, the heavy metals, the tamasic sludge, the undigested sludge. They all kind of attract each other, and they all kind of join together. So this gets, our lymphatic system gets congested, our blood gets dirty, our muscles, our fat starts to store these toxic compounds, this ama, and our cells start to malfunction, right? So there's no such thing as a concrete disease as per Ayurveda. Like Ayurveda would never say you have this disease. It will say you have an imbalance. You just have to cleanse the ama and reestablish balance, homeostasis. So the more chronic and deep and systematic your imbalances, the more intense and severe and long-term you need to go through a detoxification process. Detoxification is a catabolic process. You're not in building. So everyone's detox is going to be different. No one has the same detox because everyone has a different system. So whatever puts you in a catabolic state, a breakdown state, is fundamentally going to allow your body, your cells to cleanse, rejuvenate itself. So you have your metabolic, everyone has a different metabolism. You have your metabolism, your body's used to a certain level of anabolism, certain level of building. Detoxification is nothing but reduce the anabolism, the calories, decrease the quantity, increase the quality of the food, and naturally, by nature, the system will cleanse itself. So just any improvement in your diet, you'll go through a sense of detoxification. Now, certain herbs and certain shifts in your diet have a more dramatic effect on detoxification. Certain herbs focus on cleansing tissue, not building tissue. Certain herbs focus on building tissue, not cleansing tissue. Same thing with foods. So detoxification happens in a catabolic environment. Now, if your lifestyle was natural and we lived seasonally and we ate seasonally, your body would naturally detoxify and build, rejuvenate. Building is rejuvenation. Detoxification is breaking down. So in an ideal sense, your day should have a phase of detoxification and a phase of building, rejuvenation. Your month should have a phase. Your seasons you should go through seasonal shifts where you go in and out of detoxification, rejuvenation. All colds where you're congested and your vata goes out of balance. Basically, when your doshas go out of balance, you get cold and flu-like symptoms. All this is nothing but the fact that you didn't go through seasonal detoxes. So primarily in the fall and spring, you want to go through a detox. If you've never done a detox, you just want to start somewhere and then attune to nature's rhythms. You need to know your local environment. Like Florida doesn't really go through 4 seasons. It goes through primarily like 2. So you want to eat according to the season. For example, summer is more pitta. So it's going to increase the pitta in your system. So you want to eat foods that pacify pitta, right? More fruits and vegetables. Winter is more cooling. It aggravates vata. So you want to eat foods which balance vata. And that's more like your grains and your beans and your stews and your root vegetables. But, in Florida, we really don't have that type of environment. Florida's pretty much summer with a few bouts of fall. Or you could say a few bouts of spring. It's pretty much devoid of winter. So we're meant to primarily eat a fall diet, a spring diet, and a summer diet. And the more tropical you go, the more it's practically a summer all year long. So then you eat a very cooling diet, light diet. But ultimately, if you want to talk about satvic foods, grains are satvic, beans are satvic, root vegetables are satvic, but they have the least forgiveness policy because they're the most tamastically satvic foods. So you can't eat too much of them. If you eat too much, you're going to go into tamas. Fruits and vegetables, primarily uncooked, are extremely satvic. They're high in magnetism. They're high in prana. So the more prana something has, the more satvic it is. So fruits, they're collecting all that sunlight. They're just beaming with magnetism. That's because they're high in prana. You can eat an abundance of it, and it's not going to have a tamastic effect. Where with roots and grains and beans, although yes, they're satvic, but they're satvically tamastic for the most part. And when you look at your stimulants, your coffee is registically registic. Processed food is registically tamastic, meaning they excite you. Processed food excites you, like white sugar and food additives and refined flour. It excites you while you eat it, but then afterwards, you're done. Coffee is registically registic. It just goes. It hits you rajas, and you get the adrenal kickback. So it'll have a tamastic effect more long-term. Where ragistically tamasic food, while you're eating it, you're stimulated. The minute you're done eating it and digestion occurs, you immediately become tamasic. Whereas with like coffee, it gives you it's kind of like it has more momentum. But that means the crash is going to be that much harder. And like something like cacao is a satvic registic stimulant. So it gives you a kick, but the crash is more even, it levels out. You don't really boom. So it's smart to transition over to more satvic foods. So your raw fruits and vegetables are your kings. They're your most satvic foods, but therefore they're going to be your most cleansing foods. So that's why when someone eats, if you're full of ama and your diet's extremely tamastic, and you go on fruits and vegetables, all that ama is going to start leaving the system. And for that, panchakarma is a system of detoxification and rejuvenation which opens up the detoxification channels of the body. Now you can do an at-home version, which I'm well adept in, I've been practicing for years, as a maintenance panchakarma. But usually people go to Ayurvedic clinics and do a panchakarma, which is a strong detox process, where they're eating a satvic diet as per their standards and doing things like herbal enemas, basti, taking certain herbs, oleation, where they're basically in ketosis, so they'll drink oil and wait like 23 hours and invoke fat metabolism, and that oil, depending on its nature, will systematically go in and get the toxins which are not water soluble. They're only fat soluble, and that's like your heavy metals and stuff. So different therapies for balancing the doshas, and using oil massages with different herbal oils to balance that. So if you're pitta, you have a neem oil, and that neem starts to cool the skin, things like that. And basically through panchakarma, you detoxify your system, and you're put on a satvic diet. You're just put on a satvic diet, allow the agni and you're given foods which balance agni and revitalize it. So for example, if you're a pitta person, in the pitta time of your life, during the pitta time of the year, during the pitta time of the day, you don't want to eat pitta aggravating foods like chilies and cayenne pepper and spicy and things like that. So it's all about elemental balancing at that point. But practically, if you haven't done a thorough, Ayurveda recommends a 3-week detox twice a year, fall and spring. If you are if you're not in tune with that and you've never done a detox, you need to do one immediately, do a reset, learn a puncha karma system that you can do at home and cleanse yourself. And, if you can go to a clinic and go to a retreat, great, enjoy. But our health is so valuable, it's in our hands. And everything in Ayurveda is simple little tools, simple techniques. And they're safe, and you can do them at home, and you can adjust your diet. And, we don't live in a perfect world. There are still pesticides in the food, and there's things like that. But there's also herbs and stuff that we can use to offset everything. So do your best, eat organic as much as possible, eat high quality produce, stay away from processed refined foods, learn to not get off of the meats because they are extremely tamastic. Dairy in the modern day is tamastic. There's no modern day dairy that is satvic just because of the nature of factory farming. Basically, animal products are pretty tamastic in the modern day world. And you want to just mainly plant-based is the most satvic. It's safe. Eat a well-balanced diet when you're in building. When you're in building mode, it's good to eat a variety of nuts and variety of grains, a variety of seeds in moderation, and a variety of fruits and vegetables taken in the appropriate time, in the appropriate way. And limit, if not avoid, dairy. Limit, if not avoid, meat. Limit, if not avoid, alcohol. And anything that's a sedative or a stimulant. And learn herbology. So the best way to practice herbalism, is to take one herb, and Ayurveda recommends starting out with, there's top 10 herbs, which are pretty much good for every dosha. They're rasayanas, which means they're adaptogenic. They're tonics. You can take them long term. They act more like food in the body than they do like medicine. So they have a medicinal effect, but they have a tonifying effect. They're good long term. So a smart way to start practicing Ayurveda practically is learn an at-home puncha karma process. You can do at least once a week. Once a week, you should do a type of a detoxification process. If you're ready for a reset, do a reset. Twice a year, do a long puncha karma, a long detoxification. And eat a diet which is satvic. A little bit rajasic is fine, we live in modern day society, but mainly satvic. Learn to get off tamasic food. Tamasic food builds up too much ama and leads to dullness of mind, and it doesn't allow ultimately that journey back towards consciousness, that journey back towards source. The journey of the self is dramatically blocked because if our biology doesn't cooperate with our will, coming back to the self, coming back to source is very difficult, if not impossible. As I said when we started, health is the foundation of the purpose of life, which is kama, artha, dharma, and moksha. Living your life purpose, having the resource for your life purpose, enjoying your life, and celebrating your life purpose with the resources, and experiencing completion and fulfillment of your soul. So this needs health as a prerequisite. Basically, herbalism, take the top 10 herbs in Ayurveda. This is a good recommendation. Take the top 10 herbs in Ayurveda, and every month, rotate between 2 to 3. So breakfast, lunch, dinner. Triphala is a good herb to start. Neem is a good herb to start. Turmeric is a good herb to start. Haritaki is a good herb to start. Shilajit's a good herb to start. Ashwagandha is a good herb to start. Shatavari, Brahmi, Gotukola, which is Bacopa. Basically, these are your did I miss any of them? Tulasi. These are your king herbs in Ayurveda, kings and queens. So study these top 10 herbs, and whichever one calls to you, study them. There's a lot of good information on these top 10 herbs. And whichever one, 2 or 3 call to you, order them. Ayurveda prefers you taste herbs because in Ayurveda you have 6 tastes: salty, pungent, astringent, sour, and sweet. Salty, pungent, and bitter. So you have 6 tastes. They reflect our psychology and affect our physiology. So too much sweet, too much psychological satisfaction. Too much, a little bit is good. It's anabolic, it's building. Too much leads to imbalance, diabetes. Right? So like this, a little salt in right balance and right proportion, great. And it's not that you need all 6 in the exact same ratio. You need them all in different ratios, but you need those ratios well balanced. So bitter needs to be in the diet. Astringent needs to be in the diet. And these are the sour needs to be in the diet. Pungent needs to be in the diet. And these are things we kind of avoid. We just like salty and sweet. That's all people eat. It's either salty or sweet. So there's something called subtle sweet, which is grains, rice, beans. These are actually subtle sweet. Potatoes. They're sweet actually. So we eat too much sweet and too much salty, and we tend to avoid the rest. And our only bitter we get is in coffee, and even that, we sweeten it. And what the primary taste coming in is the effect it's going to have. So you can have a bitter herb, but if you douse it in honey, you're not going to get the full effect of that bitter. You're going to get more of the effect of the sweet, which is from the honey. Yeah.
What about something like kimchi?
Yeah, so kimchi's got a lot of pungent. Yeah.
Is that pungent?
There's a lot of pungent in there. Sour, pungent. Yeah, so that's great.
That's good for you, right?
For sure. In retrospect of balance. So you can't just overconsume, because too much sour aggravates pitta, so things like that. Too much bitter aggravates vata. Too much sweet aggravates kapha. So yeah, within its moderation, absolutely. It's needed in our modern day diet. So taking these herbs, when you taste it, it's very impactful to our organs, tissues, glands. Now, some people can't tolerate it, and I will say, initially, once you remove the ama from your system, your tongue has an agni. Your tongue has a metabolic fire. Once you remove the ama from the tongue, that agni sharpens. So things that tasted nasty before start to taste awesome. A piece of steamed carrot could have been gross when you're toxic, but it can be delicious when you're clean. So bear with the body. Don't assume that as your biology is now and what it craves is what it will crave when you go through this sacred mutation process. We're going from a tamastic state of being to a satvic state of being. Some tools, yoga, asanas, pranayamas, mudras, bandhas, all this is to create the right pranic environment in the system. And yoga works on Agni. It optimizes Agni. All your tissue layers go through a detoxification and rejuvenation process. So all this, the science of yoga, the science of asana, the science of pranayama, the science of dharana, dhyan, samadhi, all this awareness basically, the science of all this plays a major role in our doshas, on our tissue layers. For example, you sit for a long meditation, you have clarity. That played on the kapha elements in our brain. That cleared the kapha of our brain. Balance. The prana flows better. See, when prana is not flowing well, when prana is erratic, you get anxious. So if you're under fear and you're breathing very shallow, you tend to be anxious. So pranayama, deep, slow, rhythmic, long breathing, now the vata goes into balance. Basically, vata and prana, vata is basically the imbalance. Prana, the life force, when it's centered in balance, is the transcendent form of vata. Pitta, when it's in balance, is pitta. It's the heat, it's agitation. When it's balanced, it's tejas, it's radiance. Tejas is like the light of our soul shining forth through our senses and through our eyes and our third eye and all that, our chakras, the luminosity of our chakras shining through our internal organs. And then you have kapha. So kapha, when it's in balance, you have the mucus, you have the hormonal imbalances. When kapha is balanced, you have ojas. Ojas is the nourished version of our tissues. So when our tissues are nourished, when our cells are nourished, when all our tissue layers, when all the ama is removed, all the toxicity is removed, the digestion works well. The food, the nourishment of the food is metabolized by the cell. The body's able to get rid of the waste effectively. What happens is your tissue layers, your lymphatic, your blood, your bone, your fat, your muscle, your nerve, your reproductive, all these tissue layers, they're actually deep, they're deeper. Each tissue layer gets, so basically one drop of, you eat your food. Basically for every 100 chews, you break down maybe a few calories. Out of those few calories, one ratio of that calorie becomes like a drop of ojas. 100 of those creates one drop of blood. 100 of those creates one drop, so it quantifies. Each time it's like to the next power, to the nth power. So 100 drops of those creates one drop of fat. 100 drops of that creates one drop of bone. 100 drops of that creates one drop of reproductive fluid. So like that through the 7 tissue layers, it quantifies. So do you know how much food you need to eat? How much calories you need to break down to create this body? To create one drop of reproductive fluid, which ultimately creates one drop of immune power, the ojas. So the whole point of Ayurveda is to have a great digestion. So if ama is high, if toxicity is high, ojas is low. That's why if you're toxic, you tend to get sick easier, right? So you don't have that immune power. You have a weak aura. You don't have a strong aura. Your electromagnetic field is weaker. So generating ojas, generating the nourishment, happens through detoxifying the ama and creating a balanced agni and eating a satvic diet. So this is everything in a nutshell. The herbs are the most powerful way when you know how to use them. So if you just are buying some old capsules that have been sitting in a warehouse for too long and the quality is not that good, and you take one as prescribed in the bottle, don't expect you're going to get a great effect from that. So what I recommend, Banyan Botanicals is a great company, high integrity, high authenticity. You take the bulk, right? And a teaspoon is a low dose, a tablespoon is a high dose. So experiment. For some herbs, a third of a teaspoon is a low dose, a full teaspoon is a high dose. So generally on that top 10 scale I gave you, besides Shilajit, all those herbs can be taken with the scale of a teaspoon to a tablespoon. So start at a teaspoon, mix in a little bit of warm water, and drink. That's the best way to take herbs. Now, there's other creative ways, but ultimately you just want to get it in your system. You want to taste it. So the turmeric's got the pungent. The neem has the bitter. The haritaki is very astringent. Now, some herbs, what's beautiful about these top 10 herbs, the more taste an herb has, the more majestic and revered it is. So an herb that has one taste is all right. An herb that has 2 is good. An herb that has 3 is revered. An herb that has 4 tastes is sanctified. And an herb that has 5 tastes is considered nectar. It just heals everything, rejuvenates everything. Amalaki, haritaki, and schizandra berry have 5 tastes. Neem, ashwagandha, those other herbs, they have 3-4 tastes. So literally you're putting nectar in the body. And we're so used to eating foods that are toxic, we're used to poison. So when we taste nectar, we don't like it, right? But then it makes sense. Why would the Creator make nectar taste delicious? Like you have to earn it, right? Like so basically you're healthy as per Ayurvedic scriptures when you enjoy these astringent, bitter, pungent herbs that we're not used to. When your biology craves it, they say your cells are immortal. So when you actually crave those type of tastes and those type of herbs. So it's a little tough, you know, you just take it. Initially, if you need to add a little honey to help, it's fine. And, you know, and find your affinity. If you want to work more on brain and clarity and focus, you're going to go more towards Bacopa. Go to Cola. If you want to work more on if you're prone to anxiety, you want to work more on your nourishing and building strength, you're going to go more Ashwagandha. If you're female and you want to balance female hormones, you go Shatavari. If you want a good place for everyone to go is Haritaki, especially if you're Vata. Triphala is amazing. If you're Pitta and you tend to, like this is an Amalaki drink. It says Amalaki lemonade. So this has a little Amalaki mixed with lemonade. It's delicious. The sour is kind of like a lemon. And I add a little maple syrup or honey, and it's just like drinking lemonade. It's delicious. So it's a little sour, but it has 5 tastes. So it's sour. There's also a little bit of pungent, a little bit of astringent, but it's primarily sour. A little bit of sweet. Haritaki is the hardest to get down, but as per Ayurveda, Haritaki is the king of herbs. Shatavari, Shilajit is called the destroyer of diseases, the destroyer of weakness, I'm sorry. So Shilajit is called the destroyer of weakness. They say it's the only panacea in Ayurveda. Haritaki is called the destroyer of disease. So Haritaki is what the medicine Buddha, if you ever see a picture of the medicine Buddha, he's holding that flower in a pot. He's holding the Haritaki. So in Tibetan medicine also, Haritaki is number 1. So I take Haritaki every night. I've been doing this for years. I take neem in the morning. Throughout the day, I'll take a tablespoon of turmeric. All right, so turmeric doesn't absorb very well. If you have chronic pain, you need to take literally 4 cups a day. That's a lot, but it works. It gets rid of chronic pain. Or if you have to mend bone together, Mangista is good for mending bones together. But turmeric will mend bones together at that high dosage. But even, but if you add some black pepper, little coconut oil, the absorption ratio goes up. But basically, besides turmeric you need a lot. Most herbs, ashwagandha, you make 2 tablespoons is good. And the thing is with these herbs, especially ashwagandha, is you have to take the herb for like 40 days for it to truly settle in. Some herbs, like Haritaki, you'll feel it. Like that night you take it. Haritaki is one of the only herbs that detoxifies every tissue layer and rejuvenates every tissue layer. It's extremely important. It's a mild laxative. It's not an actual laxative, but if you need to clear your bowels, and I do want to talk about bowel health a little bit. Your vata, the seat of your vata is the colon. The seat of pitta is the liver, small intestine. The seat of kapha is the stomach. So mucus tends to build up in the stomach, rise into the lungs, congest the head. Pitta, the liver, small intestine, the liver tends to get overheated, toxic. The small intestine starts to get sludged up with ama, doesn't work well. And the colon, large intestine, tends to get backed up with a lot of ama, right? And then the seat of the nervous system, vata, is the colon. So if you cleanse the colon, that's why the basti, the herbal bastis are so powerful. The herbal enemas, they immediately balance the vata dosha. And they allow a drainage. So in a lot of Ayurvedic scriptures, basti is a tremendous practice for keeping all the doshas balanced. Haritaki, it's tridoshic. Triphala is tridoshic. You take it, it's going to cleanse your bowels. So your gut and your brain is directly linked. Your gut is actually, as they say in Ayurveda, your digestive process. Means when they say your digestion, they don't just mean the stomach. They mean from mouth to end. That whole 40-foot tube, that's your whole digestive process. Assimilation, digestion, assimilation of nutrition, utilization of nutrition, that includes mineral utilization, elimination, right? So it's a 4-step process. So full health of that 4-step process is the GI tract. So clearing and cleansing the GI tract. In Ayurveda, ama has a cousin called mala, M-A-L-A. And mala means poo, which hasn't left the system. So in Ayurveda, they're very clear. No poo should be in the system. When the food goes in, food goes out. And then you consume food again. So poo, literally, food that has not been eliminated is poo. You shouldn't eat again as per Ayurveda. You're asking for a disease. So there's a great Ayurvedic poetic proverb by a great Siddha named Tirumalar, who says, whatever you consume, if it fully eliminates out the body, you don't need medicine. You don't need medicine. So whatever you consume, eat. And this is the power of waiting, right? So when you eat, initially it's not possible for a lot of people. That's fine. But basically, a lot of our diseases and problems, a lot of our ama can be solved if we just knew when to eat and how long to wait. Now, we're not biologically programmed to do this, but basically you need to rest your agni, you need to rest your digestive tract. So you take food when your digestion is strongest. We don't get up early generally. We're not active early. And therefore our metabolism doesn't really start, even though it should be high when the pitta time of the day is high, it's generally not. So generally our metabolism is a little stronger later. You consume your food when it's like really active. So they say when you're really hungry, you'll eat anything, right? So you got to get yourself to that point. You don't want to eat out of pattern, meaning breakfast being the largest meal of the day is not intelligent. Technically, you should have one meal which nourishes you. The rest of the day should just be supplementary food, meaning like fruits for breakfast is fine, very satvic, high in water. At night, a little broth or a light salad is okay. But if you want to maintain optimal health, you eat one meal a day. And you drink a lot of liquid tea, herbal tea, fresh pressed juices. Smoothies are okay. It's not, room temperature is best because then you're not going to shock the vata, right? And you're going to keep the agni optimized. So really, and if you say you do have a cold drink, that's fine. Have a hot tea later. It is what it is. Foods that help digestion, cumin, fennel, coriander is a traditional remedy. So you make your food with fennel, cumin, coriander, or you make a tea out of fennel, cumin, coriander. It balances and cools the digestive, but activates it. So, any questions?
Hope we're not getting a quiz at the end.
You are. You most definitely are.
That's funny. No, this is recorded.
Wow.
Because that was a lot.
Yeah. And then, see, now you see, like, when you get going with application, we can go forever. And customizing it and finding out what works for you. Basically, some key points to take home. Try to wake up early. Try to meditate before sunrise. Try to meditate. Try to get up early and meditate. It's important. You'll have so much clarity. You'll be a little tired for a few days and you get used to it. The tiredness is actually too much pitta in the liver. So all fatigue is actually excess pitta in the liver, affecting our brain. Okay, next, when kapha time of the day, it's good to do like a heavy yoga or an exercise. If you're not physically active, so we're not in a physically active society, well, be physical during that kapha time in the morning. Pitta time of the day, try to push it to the end of the pitta time of the day because I know modern day man doesn't really get hungry till about 2 o'clock, right? So take your food then. Don't touch food at nighttime. Have a light meal. Well, if you want to directly put ama in the body and cause all the doshas to go in balance, take food at night. A little fruit at night is fine. It's not a big deal. A little juice, tea, that's fine. But don't take in your proteins, your fats, and your complex carbohydrates. You're asking for it. Avoid tamastic food. Just realize your biology will adjust to love satvic food once you cleanse out. Remember, short-term pleasure leads to long-term pain, disease, ailment, demise. So being disciplined, short-term, eat foods that you know fundamentally are going to nourish you. They're going to make you feel active and alive. Herbs. If you're really new, you don't want to get overwhelmed, take one herb, get to know that herb. I recommend harataki. It's the king of Ayurvedic herbs. Might as well start with the king, right? So start with one herb and build your way up. Be able to see, I like, even 6 herbs a day is good. So you could take herbs and, break the day up into 6. And formulas work well too. But, initially build a relationship with one herb at a time. It's very important to do that. Because then you understand that herb. So research the herb intellectually and experiment with it experientially, and gain a relationship where you know the herb, you can verify you logically analyze the data. And look, Ayurvedic herbology is a whole other thing, because then you have post-digestion, you have its effect on the dosha, you have its primary effect on which vata, pitta, kapha, you have its affinity, you have its tissue layer affinity, so that's a whole other thing. But these top 10 herbs are generally good for everybody. Research, kind of find. So gain a relationship with 1-2 herbs is good. A good place to start for most people, I recommend, is neem in the morning and harataki at night. Neem on an empty stomach in the morning, harataki right before bed. But if there's some specifics, like you want to work on adaptogenic capacity, or sleep, if you want to sleep a little deeper, then you go more ashwagandha at night. If you're constipated, you definitely want to do maybe a harataki and a triphala. If you're very pitta and you have too much heat and you tend to fatigue out and burn out, you want to do the neem. So there's ways to go about it. If you're in a lot of pain, you want to go more towards the turmeric. There's many ways. If you want more lung support and more immunity, you go more towards tulsi. I'm trying to think, if you want to jing up and really get super powerful, you go more shilajit. So that's athletes. Shilajit's amazing. So things like that. I mean, there's if you want more brain, if you're studying memory or you have brain issues, you want to go more bacopa, go to cola. If you're female, hormones type of thing, you want to go more shatavari. Not that men can't benefit from shatavari the same way. Women can also benefit from ashwagandha. But there's many ways. If your digestion's weak and you're pitta type, you want to go more amalaki, things like that. So herbalism, so I just gave a basic good type of approach to herbalism. Get good with the top 10 herbs. Who cares about herb number 200? There's 4,000 herbs in Ayurveda. There's 60,000 diseases. It doesn't matter. Take the top 10 herbs that cure all 60,000 diseases. Or I should say, rebalance all 60,000 diseases. And don't just take the herb and eat tamasically. Try to put the whole picture together. Lifestyle, practice yoga once a day. Asanas are amazing. Pranayama, amazing. Meditation, amazing. Meditation, asanas, pranayama, it makes you satvic. It's a satvic existence. Sleep, go to sleep. Don't have too much stimulation. Don't have a TV on. When you eat in peace. Be in parasympathetic mode. Be relaxed. Your digestion works better. No intense conversation. Light conversation's fine. Look at your food. Experience it with all your senses. Just be relaxed. Don't have TV on. Try not to be reading. Be aware of the food consumption process. It's very powerful in generating ojas, having optimal digestion. Detoxify your body once a week. Once a week, do a little cleanse. Fruit cleansing is great. Fruits and salads, smoothies, those type of thing. Tea, herbal tea. And learn the Puncha Karma system. I have a video on YouTube on our channel on how to do an at-home. It's called Puncha Shuddhi Kriya, is the at-home version of Puncha Karma. So learn that. Try to do it at least once a week. If you're a yoga practitioner and you're generating a lot of Agni and you're really transmuting that into Kundalini energy and a lot of prana, you want to generate your prana, then you can do that every day. And things like gapping in between meals. Try not to snack. Snacking shuts down the Agni. Don't eat at night. Try not to eat heavy in the morning. Get your nourishment in really midday. Don't snack, gap. It's really intelligent to do that. And learn ultimately to to basically be in tune with your body. So that's it in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any last questions, quick?
Coffee, I know it's not good, but what about like cold brew where they don't heat up the seed?
It's still its active constituent as you know, bioavailable. Probably better, but coffee is still coffee.
What if we only drink like 1 cup in the morning?
Yeah, well, like I said, we live in a ragistic world, so a little bit of rajas, is fine. You're going to get a kickback from it. But if you're doing everything else right, and you're satvic, and you get your yoga in, you're eating more fruits and vegetables, you're eating more healthier foods, like instead of meats, you're transitioning to grains and beans and nuts and seeds and root vegetables, and you're getting off processed food, and you're waking up early doing your practice, and it's fine. A little rajas is not a big deal. But definitely stay away from processed food and meats. That I highly, highly recommend. Don't take any heavy food at night. Don't demand anything from your digestion once that sun goes down. Any other question? Okay, cool. Let's close. And just inhale. If you know the chant, you can chant. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.